That was a really beautiful ritual, Nikki. Thank you for sharing that with us. Can you talk us through it a little bit, please, and kind of explain it to us?
Okay. It's actually quite difficult for men working alone. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of emphasis on the feminine in the craft nowadays, which is very unfortunate because they tend to forget about there's a man in all of this as well. And regardless of how we practice, we cannot call the goddess into ourselves in the same way that you, as a practicing witch, can call the goddess to you.
That's part of female magic, isn't it?
It is. It's a female mystery. The male mysteries are quite separate and quite different. In order to work with the goddess energy, we have to have a way of doing that. And the ritual that I devised many years ago for doing this was the one that you've just seen.
And it's really beautiful.
It's actually because we can invoke the god into ourselves quite easily.
And you did that very beautifully, actually, when
you
stood there and called the god in. That was quite energetic.
It's to do with the fact that the god isn't only up in the heavens. There's this whole thing about solar magic and the god being the sun and all of this, but there is a god in the earth as well.
It's the unity of the two, isn't it?
You have to have the sun rising over the earth, but you also have to have the dynamic power of the god within the earth to enable her to give birth, because neither is anything without the other. So when I actually work, I actually raise the god within me. I do that from the lower, what the Indians call the chakra, from the lower point, which is the organ of regeneration, the penis. So the energy is called in from there first, because that's where our energy starts from. That is one of the main controlling energies of the male. The next part is from the solar plexus, so named because when you see it, it looks like the sun. Yeah. So you then call the god from that point, which is the actual solar point. So you've got the earth point, the solar point, and then from the sky itself.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're calling the god from below through your whole body.
Through the whole
so that you can actually feel that connection coming up through your whole body.
And
whereas a woman would call in the goddess from the sky, from the moon energy, through
straight
and
in.
down and
Yes.
straight in, particularly into the heart and the solar plexus as well.
Yeah, you have to think that how magic works is it we reflect how magic works.
Yeah.
And when we say, as above, so below, it's also a question of as below, so above. The way a man works is the fact that he gets an erection. So the energy comes up through a man. Yeah. It doesn't come down through a man. It actually comes up. So you call it upwards into yourself. And so hence the calling of the god. And then since the moon is our queen of heaven, our light in our darkness, that's when we have to call the goddess down. Yeah. But we can't call her in because we're men.
Absolutely.
So what we use is the chalice and the wine signifying the blood. So we salute with the athame.
Yeah.
You never pierce the moon with the blade, so you only ever touch the base of the moon with the blade.
So you're holding your athame towards a full moon when you're working outside on a full moon night, so that the tip of the athame touches the edge of the moon, but not actually piercing through.
It doesn't pierce it, because this isn't a great rite. It's not a fertility thing. This is a contact.
And it's honouring the goddess,
and
isn't it?
It's honouring her. The athame, the imagery of the athame can't be mistaken. It's it's a phallus, blade and chalice. Chalice, woman, looks like a woman. Yep. Let's face it. So we call the energy down, but you don't put the knife into the water, into the wine, in the same way that you would in other rituals.
Yeah.
Because this is about a joining. This is a coming together. This is going out on a date, if you like.
Yeah.
You're meeting up with your loved one, not for any other purpose other than to be with her.
And to honour.
her. So the blade comes to within about that much of the water. And that's when you let the nature of metal, which in itself is air, to bring the breath of the goddess from the moon down into there, and then infuse the wine.
And be part of it.
And become one with it. So what you are then doing by drinking is you're actually taking the goddess in a way that you can.
Yes.
As a man.
Yes. You're partaking of her.
We are partaking of her in a way that otherwise we can't. You know, and much as a man may be in touch with his feminine side, he can't be.
Yeah.
He can't be that thing.
Do you think it's hard for men coming into the craft? Do you think it's hard because it is so female dominated?
I think it is quite difficult, simply because there are a lot of female practitioners who are misanthropic. They don't actually like men. And I think that's very unfortunate. And I think it is a consequence of the history of the craft, which is, you know, basically men have oppressed women for centuries. But it seems to me over the years that I've been practicing that the women are quite enjoying putting the boot on the other foot and oppressing the men. And it makes it very difficult for men coming into the craft, because especially if you've got a group of people who say, well, the goddess is everything, the man is nothing. One is nothing without the other.
You can't have one without the other.
You cannot have a top without a bottom, a back without a front, and you cannot have magical flow without without the masculine energy.
I think it's right to say that there are times when men have to come together as in men groups and work male magic, and there are times when women have to come together as women and work female magic. But when you bring the two groups together, when you bring the male and female energy together, you have such an amazing synergy that's when it all flows properly.
That's when it should do. I mean, if men, the problem for men nowadays is they've lost a lot of their role. We're no longer hunters and gatherers. We're viewed as pariahs if we show any kind of dominant tendencies. We are here not to dominate. We are actually built and designed to protect our society. We are here to protect the women. And much as they may say, we don't need any protection, in point of fact, I know several women who don't need protection, who are very, very good at defending themselves. But put one of them against 4 men, for example. What is she going to do?
But I think also within magic, it's showing the balance,
and it's
between
also
the two.
demonstrating
really
the fact that neither one is greater than the other. We say the earth yields to the plough. That's true. We also say that the deer gives itself to the arrow or the spear. That also is true. The fact that we are hunters and we hunt our women and we look for them and we chase them and pursue them, that doesn't necessarily mean that the woman has to be caught or even may not want to be caught.
So do you think in magic there are definite roles for men and definite roles for women that are quite different, or do you see them as coming together and being on a similar level? How do you view that?
I see what I see is a very clear divide, because there is a very clear divide between men and women. There's a very clear divide between the energy of the male energy and the female energy. They are both very different. Either can be soft and yielding and enfolding and protecting. Both or either can be just as warrior-like. It's knowing when to be which. And that, I think, is a big problem, is because women have come to enjoy this very, very special sort of power that they have now, which is that power of self-determination, which they should always have had. But it's actually knowing when to yield to the plough.
So how would you demonstrate that within magic? How would that be apparent within circle, for instance?
I think when you're invoking the god and goddess into the priest and priestess, I think that's when it shows that you meet on a very equal footing. The God welcomes the goddess in a way that you would welcome somebody that has been long lost to you.
Yeah.
And he takes hold of her. Now that's not an aggressive act. That is a very welcoming act, and she steps into his arms.
And they yield to each other.
And they go. They meet each other on a very, very equal footing, on a very balanced footing. But with that same kind of tragedy that makes them know that when this ritual is over, they're going to be separated again. Because that is the nature of it. They are separate.
There's a deep loneliness, I feel, to the god figure as well, because he's both the hunter and the hunted. And there's that pull there, I think, for any priestess and priest who are coming together with the energy of the god and goddess within them both. There's a feeling of longing from the god energy. Absolutely.
I mean, it's again reflected in the way that men pursue women to sometimes the point of stupidity. I mean, often men will be quite foolish in their pursuit of womankind when it isn't actually necessary. All they need to do is be themselves and let the woman come.
Yeah.
So they'll find the right one.
What advice would you give to any men who want to walk a craft or magical path and are finding it difficult? What advice would you give to them?
I think patience. I think of the goddess sometimes as a bird. If you're in a forest and you're whistling, you can have a handful of corn. It can be the middle of the winter and nothing will come near you. You can be in Trafalgar Square surrounded by pigeons. Not one of them will come near you if you're holding it like this. Stand quietly. Listen to what the world is telling you. Listen to what the goddess herself tells you. You learn more from walking barefoot in a field under the full moon than you will do from any book, but you must learn to listen. And men are notoriously bad at that, because what we want to do is offer solutions all the time, which is great when you're in the company of other men, because a bloke will say to you, I've got this problem, and you'll go, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Have you done that? And they'll go, oh no, I didn't think of that. When the woman comes to you and she's had a bad day, she doesn't want you to sit and say, but did you think of, didn't you say this? Didn't you say that? All she wants you to do is listen. And that's what the goddess needs you to do.
Take a moment and listen.
Take that breath in and just listen to the sigh of the wind. Listen to the run of the stream. Listen to the sound of the birds. Listen to the clatter of the pigeons' wings as they leave the trees. Listen. Watch the bird flight. Watch the way the clouds move. And eventually you'll hear that voice and it will take you to where you need to be. But you've got to make that effort to just be still and be silent and be patient. And go back to your roots as a hunter, because rushing into a clearing would make the stag run. Just go back to being that hunter, sit quietly and wait.
Yeah. And understand that whilst the magical energy is the same, there's a lot of differences in the male mysteries and the female mysteries.
The male mysteries are very, very different, and it does require that men become extremely comfortable with their own bodies, with themselves, with the fact that, for example, an erection is meant to look aggressive. It's not something you need permission to have. It's something that is part of you, and it's a very powerful, potent force. That kind of physiological change can be channeled. You have to be comfortable with yourself, and not feel particularly threatened by anyone. It's just a question of knowing yourself.
And that kind of crosses over into female magic as well.
It does.
It's about being comfortable with who you are and where you are.
Yeah.
And I also think,
and knowing that giving yourself to a man in any situation, whether it's in circle where you give yourself to the god, or whether you give yourself to your lover, that does not diminish you. And if you have a lover that thinks it does, well, kick him out.
And with rituals as simple as this, it's not difficult for men to actually step into circle and actually feel that energy for themselves. And that's the important thing to know.
Once the goddess comes, he'll actually understand really exactly how powerful she is, and also how accommodating she is, without losing any of that power or strength. Like how yielding she is, how malleable that energy is to manipulate and send out and bring in and change. That's what the goddess does. Look at what she does in the world.
And I think it's important to remember as well that through the god you know the goddess, and through the goddess you come to know the god.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of sums up kind of where male and female magic actually meets.
Yeah.
And that's important. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
One major area that draws many witches is healing. All witches want to help those people who need it if they can, and healing work is often a large part of what witches do. The art of healing can be performed in many ways. Often a witch will learn some of the techniques that are commonly taught today: aromatherapy, massage, reflexology, acupuncture, Reiki, and crystal therapy, to name but a few. Sometimes you will find yourself drawn to a particular tradition, or perhaps you will realise a skill within yourself that has always just seemed to be there, a calming energy perhaps, or an ability one has to dispel fear or give comfort. Either way, learning to heal in whatever way you choose is all part of the tradition of witchcraft. More often than not, when energy is raised in a circle for whatever purpose, some of that energy is usually used for distant healing. The coven with which I work keeps a healing book with names of people who have requested our help for various ailments. During each circle, we spend a portion of the time raising energy and sending it to the people whose names are in the book. Some of our members have specialised in healing techniques, but we all do what we can as a group to help those who have asked for our help. The full moon ritual is an ideal and traditional time to perform healing rituals, and this often becomes the focus of the body of the full moon ritual. When working a healing, remember to raise the energy as I've already shown, and perhaps focus on a candle or a photo of the person you are working for. It is also essential that you obtain the permission of the person you intended the healing for if they themselves have not approached you first. This follows a law of not working against a person's will. The healing techniques illustrated in this film are Reiki and crystal therapy. Reiki is a Japanese technique that channels universal energy through the practitioner and into the patient. Crystal therapy uses certain crystals at different points of the body to energize and help the body dispel illness. As you walk your path, it is good to explore the many disciplines the craft may have to offer and to see what you are drawn to within its teachings. When you are new to the craft, you will want to learn everything now and master it all immediately. The key to any learning, be it esoteric or otherwise, is to pace yourself and learn slowly, and to understand that the learning process lasts a lifetime. During this process, you may find hidden talents you didn't even know you had, or you may be drawn to an aspect of the craft that surprises you. One of the disciplines we will look at within the craft and are fascinated by is the art of divination, or fortune telling. Since ancient times, man has yearned to know what the future may hold for him and sought out those people skilled in this magical art, and it is no different today. Modern witches still learn the old ways of divination. This takes skill, dedication, and an ability to open oneself up to the universal consciousness, and to learn how to listen to your own intuition and inner voice. This skill comes easy to some and harder to others, but I believe it is a skill we all have if we choose to tap into it and study hard. You do not have to be a witch to master these arts, but you do need foresight and sensitivity, and the time and patience to develop your own psychic ability. The further you go with your witchcraft, the more you will naturally become open and aware of these hidden gifts, and the more you will be able to connect with them at will. It's the awareness of this ability that is important, and a willingness to explore it fully. Most importantly of all is the realization that any tool we use for any magical work, and this includes the various tools of divination, is that they are just that, tools. The most powerful sources of information comes from within us, and any magical tool simply aids us in coming into contact with our own higher self. This further illustrates the importance of knowing who we are. It is also necessary to remember to always keep a record of what you see when you are divining, either for yourself or for someone else. While something may not seem to make sense at the time, it may become clearer later on. A written record of things divined will give you a useful point of reference should you need to refer back to it in the future. It will also stand as a record of your progress. Tarot cards are perhaps the most easily recognised of all the many and varied divinatory skills, and relatively easy to learn. As with all tools of divination, it is important to choose your tarot cards with care. There are many different types on sale, so spend some time researching the different ones and see which pack you are drawn to. When you have chosen one, it is vital that you read any book that comes with it and work through the pack card by card, familiarising yourself with each meaning. Practice makes perfect, so take time each day to work with your cards until you are confident with them. Don't hurry it. It will all fall into place when the time is right. Always remember that these are just simply another tool to connect to your own psychic awareness, and once you feel you are ready to give readings, simply let the information come. Yes, you have studied the cards and learnt their meanings, but it is still you that is interpreting them and connecting with your own higher self to give the advice and the help that is needed. Trust your own observations and feelings, and remember that the first thought is divine and the second is doubt. That is to say, trust your intuition and go with what feels right. Any feelings of doubt simply squash your intuitive feelings, causing you to stumble. Believe in yourself. With practice and patience, your cards will feel like old familiar friends to you, and you will have many hours of enjoyment from them and learn much.